Hi, everybody. My name is Victoria. I'm with the Family Focused Resource Center, and I want to welcome you to our webinar today called Preparing for Back to School. This webinar is designed to help you as parents to get your child ready to go back to school in person and maybe do a little preparation on the front end to help your child have a great school year. And our presenter today is Michelle Heid. Michelle is with an agency called Advanced Behavioral Pathways. She has worked with us before on other webinars. So Michelle, we're happy to have you back. And I'm going to hand it over to you. Thanks.
Thanks, Victoria. We're happy to be back too, helping parents get their kids ready for back to school. So back to school is obviously going to be a little bit different this year. So we're going to provide some relevant tips to starting the 21-22 school year off with a bang. So like we all know, this school year is really going to be like any other we've ever experienced. The last 2 years have been really difficult for everyone. Students have been through a lot. They've been in school and out of school and in virtual classrooms and classrooms at home. And teachers as well have been, through that roller coaster with them of being, in school one day and virtual the next day. So we really know that everybody in the school system has had some difficulties over the last 2 years. And returning to school this year is going to be just a little bit different, but we hope that everybody's ready to get back into the classroom and have success. What we do know as educators is that students and families have experienced a lot of changes and a lot of difficulties over the past 2 years. We've seen a lot of students move. During the 2 years, we've seen families go through a lot of changes. And so, with that in mind, a lot of educators and teachers and schools are really preparing to support their students from a whole child perspective and really through that social emotional lens. So mental health is going to be very important as we start the school year. And I would, share with all the parents who are watching that you need to consider the mental health of your child and yourself to ensure that we're all, as well as we can be so that we're ready and available for learning and can be really at our best. So to do that, we may need to ensure that our students have adequate downtime. So instead of, coming home and jumping right into homework and, lots of after school activities, we may want to ensure that they have rest and that they have playtime and that they have some downtime. Maybe not so much screen time, but, activities that are, really healthy for them away from the screen and, just some play and some downtime. So if our students are struggling with mental health, we may want to just reduce overall demands, meaning, maybe we don't have them do as many chores as we might have them do in the past if they're struggling, or we may want to reduce homework and talk to their teachers about those kinds of things so that we can, again, just reduce their overall demands. I know one year my son was really struggling in school and he had been taking the bus to school and doing that very independently and very successfully. But I decided that that was one thing that I could, take off his schedule and go back to taking him to school to really just reduce the overall demands on him throughout the day. And then we really want to be there to provide support and understanding to our children when they're home. We want to be able to, hear them out with their concerns and be there to provide some comfort and some understanding and, have home be that safe place to fall. We also know that our children with behavioral challenges or difficulties At times, they hold it together at school and they come home and have a much more difficult time. And it's important for us parents to just understand that they may be, really having difficulty holding it together at school all day, and they come home and they kind of lose it. And we may have to, be there to support them through that and really, kind of be understanding and tolerant of some of those behavioral challenges that might happen at home. There's a clinical psychologist by the name of Dr. Pat Fryman, and he's out of Boys Town in Nebraska. There's a great video that we will link in the chat about there's no such thing as a bad boy. He really believes that there's no such thing as a bad boy, but that there's bad training and bad modeling and bad environment. That if we just change those things, we change the teaching, we change the environment, and that students and children will behave more appropriately. His message also really shares with us right now that we've all been really through a major challenge, and that we need to just remember to go easy. And I'm taking that to heart and really sharing with as many people as I can reach that it's important to have really a compassionate view of behavior and all of the challenges that we've all just been through. It's really impacted us all very differently, but it's really important that when we look at behavior, we're really looking with that lens of compassion and social emotional support for students, especially this school year. We want to make sure that you, through this webinar, really keep your child in mind. You know your child best, and some of the strategies that we're going to share may work for your child, and some of them may not. Some students are going to need more preparation for getting ready for the school year, and some students may be overly stressed by that preparation. And so you really want to, choose the preparation activities that are going to help your child and are going to work for your child and are not going to overly stress them or make that transition to school more difficult or worse. So really think about your child and provide them with what they need to be successful. And for parents who have multiple children, that may be more challenging because it may be a little bit different for each child. We know that all kids are very unique and different. And so you may have to, do some of these activities with more than one of your children. And then some of them you may need to just do with individual children just to really prepare them as best you can for each one of your kids. So now we're going to jump into some of the preparation activities. And I want you, as we go through some of these too, to start thinking about things that may be related a little bit to these things. So there may be other things that are very similar that you could do to these preparation activities. So one thing you can do, and we really, we do recommend doing this, especially for students who may have some anxieties about going back to school, is drive by the school. You can get out of your car, you can walk around, you can point to different parts of the campus. We know that many campuses are locked. You can't, walk around the campus like you could maybe, 20 years ago, but you can, point out the office, drop off places where they're likely to get dropped off or picked up, or places that they're going to visit, like the cafeteria or the library, things like that. So you can drive by the school, you can walk over to the school, walk around the campus. If that doesn't work for you, or some kids may really like being on the computer, you can really use Google, and you can Google images about the school. You can use Google Earth to actually, take a virtual tour of the campus and talk about it. And some students may really enjoy using the computer for that. I know lots of students who really like Google Earth and they like to explore different parts of the community. So you could do that. And really make sure that you point out those different parts of the campus that they're going to need to be familiar with, especially the drop off, especially if kids are going to be dropped off at a different location than where they were last year, or the school is new to them. You were dropped off at this gate last year because you were in kindergarten, but now you're a first grader and you're going to be dropped off over here. Those kinds of things. And then while you're doing that, you may want to talk about the expectations of school. Things like at school, we need to line up when we're walking from the cafeteria to our classroom. We need to line up in the morning when we're waiting for our teacher, and our teacher will come and pick us up. We need to raise our hand when we're getting ready. We want to share something, just kind of those expectations that we have when students are on campus. Really important just to kind of talk about those things and provide those reminders. Some other things you can do to start really preparing for back to school is begin using a schedule that's similar to school. So what time, will your student have to go to bed and wake up for school? You may want to start kind of inching closer to that schedule. For some students, it might be good too to just, implement a school schedule a week or two before the school year starts. And like I said, for others, it might be good to kind of do it a little bit slowly, but have them start getting up in the morning at the time that they would get up for school, and go to bed a little bit earlier as they would during school. So start introducing that schedule. Start getting up earlier in the morning. You may want to introduce and practice some academic skills like math or sight words or writing, or just, some of the things that are going to be expected again once kids go back to school. So, any paper pencil tasks, or just, simple writing their name, writing sentences, even writing about, what they did over the summer and some fun things, reviewing some of those sight words, and then, simple math and things like that really are at their level. And if they're not into doing a lot of schoolwork, you may even want to do some simple paper pencil games and things like that, so that they can enjoy kind of practicing some of those activities. You may want to practice getting ready for the day, those skills that are needed for getting ready for the day, getting up, putting on shoes, socks, getting dressed, brushing teeth. You may want to really start practicing that routine again, and you may want to practice in the order that you're going to be doing those things when the school year starts. And it's important that we start practicing those things now, so that we really can practice that independence while there's more time. Right now we're not rushed because we don't have to leave the house at a certain time necessarily to get to school. So we have a little bit more time to kind of practice those things where there's not a lot of rushing around. So good time to really hone those skills of getting ready in the morning. And for some kids, that may just be taking care of themselves, getting dressed and brushing their teeth. For other kids, it may be making their lunch and getting their backpack ready and all of those things. So what can your kids do to kind of be independent? You want to start getting those school materials ready to help them, really get excited about going back to school. You may want to allow your child to pick some of those things out, either online or in the store. Pick out, that new backpack or pencil case or lunchbox or whatever it is that they may need to be successful at school. I know not everyone, buys new every year. And that's okay too, but you can freshen up those older school supplies by giving them a good wash, maybe putting their name on it so they're ready to go to school, or things like even like decorating with a patch or something, an older backpack, just something that you can do to kind of freshen up those older school supplies to help them get kind of excited about going back to school. Another thing that you can do with your school materials is make a homework toolbox with all the supplies that are needed for homework, so that when your child comes home to do their homework, they're not, searching around for all those supplies, or, where did this go, or what happened to this, but that everything is kept, in one little box, and you keep it in the same place in the house, so that when it's homework, they just get that box out and have all the tools that they need. I worked with a family who had 4 children, and it was very cute because each of the kids had their very own box, nicely labeled with their name. The kids, they didn't always get along this well, but at times they would get each other's boxes out for them to help them get ready for their homework. Especially the little one who didn't have a lot of homework. She liked helping her older siblings get their homework box ready. And then you may want to create a nice homework area, where there's little distraction and the supplies that they need, and a nice, desk area maybe to do that, or a table. Sometimes we recommend that parents use like study corrals, things like that, that you can get to kind of make a common area better for homework. So something to kind of section off that area for them. You may want to start thinking about your after school schedule. And again, we don't want to jump into homework right when they get home. Some students actually like to do that, and that works for them. And if your kid is one of those, then go for it, do what works for them. But you may want to consider putting a snack in after that, or even a rest period and then homework. I know some kids, I recommend that parents take a snack with them in the car, because the kids are just so hungry they can't even make it home before they have that snack. So a snack in between might be really helpful. And yeah, that's a great idea, Victoria, about making a kit and taking it with you, so that if you want to do homework elsewhere. I know with my son too, I would do homework often somewhere in the community, simply because he would have better behavior in the community than he would at home. So it was much easier to do homework, at a public place like a library or a park, instead of waiting until we got home. You may also want to really start having and making, kind of creating that consistent bedtime routine. So what is that going to consist of for your child? Is it going to be, kind of dinner, and then a bath, and then some reading, and then bed? Or what is that, routine for your child and your family that works? But that consistent bedtime routine, going through those same activities repeatedly at night can really help prepare a child for bed, can lead to better sleep. So you want to start thinking about creating that consistent routine. And that's actually really important to do all year, but you may have a different routine that you kind of have adopted over the summer. So it's time now to start thinking about how to create that consistent routine for the school year that's going to help the child get to bed, sleep well, and wake up ready for school the next day. So one of the big topics, is going to be masks. We at this point, schools are going to require masks for the most part inside when kids are in the classroom, or anywhere indoors when they're not eating. So we would really encourage everyone to prepare their students to wear them in case that's what's needed. So many students may, have not worn them for a few weeks, and now are going to be asked to come to school and wear them for, the majority of a 6.5 or a 7-hour school day. So we want to make sure that they're ready for that, and that they can wear them for that length of time. So You may want to get some new school masks along with your other school supplies, again, to just get your child excited about wearing them and being okay with that. When students went back to school in person, for those students who did go back to school in person last year, I was really surprised at how well the majority of students did with wearing masks. It really did not seem to be as big of a problem as as I thought it was going to be. And they did really well. But you may want to let your child pick them out just so that they are really, excited. It's their choice, their characters, their colors, whatever that may be. Practice wearing them for short durations during the day, and then increasing the time that they're wearing them so that they can, wear them for a couple hours at a time, because that's, the school schedule. They're going to be in school in the morning in their classroom wearing them until recess. And then they're going to be wearing them between recess and lunch, et cetera, through the day. So just make sure that they have that tolerance. You may want to model wearing a mask also for your kids. So that time that they're practicing, maybe everyone in the family is wearing it, so that we can really model that appropriate behavior. One really important thing too is you really want to make sure that they fit well and are comfortable for those long periods of time. And they do need to wear them over their nose. And when I was in classes at the end of the school year last year, a lot of the kids, their masks would just not fit well. And so they would dip under their nose. And we were, a lot of us adults having to tell them repeatedly to kind of pick them up and put them over their nose. And most kids were very compliant with doing that, but it was simply slipping down because they didn't fit well. So try to make sure that you can find masks that really fit well for your child, and they can wear them for a period of time. But like I said before, students did much better with mask wearing than I really thought that they were going to. Yeah, and they may get stretched out over time if they're cloth masks, or just, so just kind of make sure that the ones that you're sending to school really work well for your child. For the behavioral expectations, you want to start reviewing those expectations of school early, and start doing it now as they're getting ready for school. Things like, remember, you need to raise your hand to speak, you need to wait to be called on, you need to ask if you can go to the bathroom, those kinds of things. They need to be able to sit and follow directions and sit quietly. When students returned in person, that was some of the big difficulties that students had, is just sitting quietly for the length of time that they needed to, and engaging in those kind of expected behaviors of following directions and doing the schoolwork. That was really difficult for a lot of students when we went back to school last year. So I am expecting that it's going to be difficult again for students, having been out for summer and prior, being kind of in and out of school all last school year. So really make sure that you're starting to practice those kinds of things, sitting in a chair and doing some of the school type activities so that they're really ready for the school year. You may want to set aside parts of the day to really practice following those behavioral expectations. So begin practicing them during the day, different parts of the day. So you may want to set aside an hour and, make it kind of fun and talk about, we're going to pretend we're in school, and remember, you need to raise your hand and wait to be called on, and, just kind of practice some of those things. Give them praise and point out when they're following those school rules, just like they would in school. You may want to play a game and reverse roles and have parents follow the school rules, and have kids point out when you're following the school rules and when you're not, and make it fun for everyone. One thing that a lot of kids really enjoy is, having that school spirit. I know a lot of schools have adopted, not only school spirit wear, but mottos, and even behavioral expectations that kind of go along with the school mascot. They have little school songs that all the kids know and really enjoy singing in the morning. So, what is it for your child's school that you can kind of, help them kind of, learn and get into that school spirit? Especially for kids who are starting at new schools this year, you may want, go on the school website and find out what is the school mascot and what are the school colors, and, what are some of the spirit activities that that school does, so that you can start introducing those for your child and kind of talking about it, so that they can get excited about some of those activities. If they have their school spirit wear, you can encourage them to wear it before they're getting ready for school, the first few days before, just to, kind of get them again excited about going back to school. And talk about school and the fun things that your kids enjoy at school. If they don't enjoy math, but they really enjoy recess or science or the computer lab, a lot of those things were not available to students last year. So computer lab and art classes and things like that, they mainly had to stay in their own classroom, but a lot of that's going to be brought back this year. So you may want, to start sharing with your child that they may be able to go to the computer lab this year, or they may have assemblies and things like that, those things that they were excited about in the past. And then you might want to start thinking about reminding them of things like what time they have to leave in the morning, other things that are, maybe unique to your family. Remember, you go to childcare in the morning and then you go to school, or, we have carpool and, so-and-so is going to pick you up this day, or whatever that is for your family, things that are important to remember about school and that surround that school routine. For me, it's always, what time do we have to leave in the morning? Because, I don't like to be late. My son never really liked to be late to school, although he didn't want to really go to school either. But he really, if he was going to go, did not want to be late. So I would always, have to remind him, remember, this is what time we need to leave in the morning, so that we can, get to school without being in a big rush. You might want to think about creating some visual supports for your family, for your students. Things like making a calendar and begin checking off the days until school starts, to get them excited about starting. Create a list of reminders, those behavioral expectations. I know I'm working with a family now, and I talked to their teacher and got those expectations, and was able to write them down and send a reminder home so that they can start practicing those things. And then you may want to review those throughout the week before school starts. So, as you're kind of counting down the days, start really, using those reminders and looking at that calendar. So this year, there are a lot of unknowns, and, as we've experienced in previous years, there may be changes that we're not anticipating. And, I think we as adults, we all kind of understand that. And even though we understand, we may have a really hard time kind of dealing with that or navigating it, managing through it. But being what the last 2 years have been, we know that there's, likely going to be changes and unknowns in the future. So what I encourage you to do is tell your student what you do know, and let them know that you don't know all the answers to their questions. You don't know for sure if they're going to have assemblies or if their computer lab is going to be open. You can say, at some schools they are, and we're going to have to see what's going to happen at your school. So you may want to, just tell them when you don't know the information. Kids do better if they have some information, even if it's that we don't know yet. because if they know that we as adults don't know, then they can manage with that better than us not telling them anything. A lot of behavior challenges can stem from just missing information, not knowing, what comes next, or not understanding what's happening through the day. So as much information as we can provide kids, and maybe not all at once. A lot of kids, they're not going to take a 60-minute lecture on what to do or how school is going to go, but we have to kind of plant seeds of information along the way that then kind of, grows into a whole understanding of whatever it is that we're talking about. And, I recommend that with a lot of things, but especially too, with that getting ready for school, it might be better little bits at a time. With what we don't know, really assure your students that you'll be there to support as we work through this school year. So whatever happens, we will be there to support you. We don't know what's going to happen for sure. I know it may be a little bit scary going back to school because of all the changes that have happened in the past. And while we don't know what the school year will bring, mom and dad will be there to support you, or whoever that is that's there to support your student. Just make sure that they know that you're going to be there, through those changes, and you'll all get through it together. And really, we want to, again, go back to that mental health and compassion, and make sure that we're showing our students compassion, because, what they've been through is very difficult for them. We know that many adults have had a really hard time the last couple years. So we can imagine that kids don't yet have the ability to manage changes like we do. And so kids have also had a really hard time, and it's just important to allow them to feel what they're feeling and, vent at times. So they may need, to share their frustration, or they may have some behavior challenges. And it's important to give a compassionate response. And, I understand that you're feeling very upset. I understand that you're feeling frustrated. And then, try to model appropriate responding, or give them ideas of activities that they can do to kind of manage those feelings through that. So you want to validate and then direct to a more appropriate response. So, we don't want to tell our students that they're not frustrated when they're telling us they're frustrated. We want to say, I understand that you're frustrated, and here's a different response. Let's go take a walk. Let's go, draw a picture. Let's, take a break from homework and go have some watermelon in the backyard. Whatever that's going to be to redirect them to a more appropriate response would be really important. We're all dealing with a lot, and we may not be at our best, our kids included, but also us as adults and the teachers and schools. And, we've all just been dealing with a lot. And I think we really need to have compassion for one another. And it's our job as parents and others who provide support to students to really be there to provide that support and have that soft place for kids to fall, and allow them to feel the feelings and, possibly melt down at home. And we're there to hug them and help them put the pieces back together and get back on the right track. So we really need to provide that support with a lot of compassion. I want you to think about, what do you need when you're frustrated, or you're facing a challenge, or you're facing a problem? Often what we need as adults is just someone to hear us and to listen, and to vent, and to, maybe agree with us a little bit that, what that problem is really difficult, or it's not fair, or it's hard. But we just need that support. Often we don't need, someone trying to problem solve or tell us what to do. We just need someone to understand. So sometimes kids just need that understanding as well. I am really lucky, my son is now 20, and he'll come home from work and be frustrated about something, and he'll just tell me, I just need to vent. And I just, I need you to hear me, but I don't need you to try to solve the problem, because I am, as a parent, like, always really trying to solve the problems. And so he will simply tell me, I just need you to listen. I'm just going to vent, and then I'll be done, and I'll feel better. So it's pretty funny. And the things he vents about are pretty funny too, because he gets very, very frustrated with things that I think, that's probably not that big of a deal. But I don't say that to him. To him, I say, man, that's really frustrating. And just kind of hear him out, and that helps. So when I was putting this together, we really were thinking about how to prepare kids for back to school. But then I thought, well, parents might be, having some difficulties as well. So we know that through the pandemic, a lot of people have been home, they've been together, they've, maybe really bonded as family units. And now we're starting to separate again and kind of go out into the world. And that may be anxiety inducing for parents as well. We're sending our kids off in the hands of others to provide that, guidance and support. And we may feel as parents a little anxious about that. So you want to start thinking for yourself, what are the changes that are needed once the school routine starts for you? Do you have to start getting up earlier? Do you have to start engaging in some of those preparation activities, like getting ready the night before, or packing those lunches the night before to make that morning routine easier? What is going to help you as a parent be at your best to support your child through that? And you want to think about, how can things be made easier? So, is it easier for you if one thing that I used to do is, I always tell parents, like, get ready the night before, but I would be just so tired at night that I couldn't like get ready the night before. So I actually get ready like in the afternoon before for the next day, because if I wait till the night, I'm just too tired. So, think about how things can be made easier for you in managing this. And then also just, do remember that schools and educators and everyone, I talked to some educators this morning, and one of them said, like, this has been the busiest summer ever. We had summer school for some of our students. And then there was just so much preparation in preparing the school sites and the teachers and the students to help kids come back to school, that it was a very, very busy summer for a lot of educators, because they've all been really preparing to bring the kids back, look at them as, this whole student, and have this compassionate view. I've heard a lot of professional development happening over the last couple of weeks about compassion and understanding, and looking at the whole child instead of just really being concerned about the academics. So, take to heart that educational institutions are really, doing their best to support your children once they come onto your campus. And maybe that will make it a little bit easier for you to let your little one go. People like me, I provide a lot of behavioral support on school campuses, are really, I've been gearing up to really make sure that I can be there, and that my team can be there to support students from a behavioral perspective, because there is likely going to be a lot of challenges. So for parents, think about, what can I do to make things a little bit easier? Maybe you want to set up carpool with your neighbor, or maybe you want to, make some easy lunches and get some of that going ahead of time. What can you do to prepare ahead of time? Can you, set out outfits? And, I remember one school year, I would do laundry on the weekend, and then all the outfits for the whole week would just be all, tucked in together. And it was very easy to say, okay, this is what my kid's going to wear on Monday, and this is what my kid's going to wear on Tuesday. It became so easy for him that I started doing the same thing for myself. So, think about what you can do to prepare, and then really think about what you can do to support your student. But I'm also going to kind of turn this around, and what can you do to support yourself and your own mental health, or your partner in, if it's your husband or your wife who's helping the kids get ready, how can you be of support to them as as we all make this transition back to school. So I want to say thank you. We'll have our next back to school problem solving webinar September 7th at 3. And I will also present that, and that will be, after kids have gone back to school, then how can we, help them be successful, and what are some of those problem solving tips that we can use now that school's gone back, and what are the struggles. And so we'll be reaching out to the community to really hear from you about what your struggles are, and we'll be taking that information as we go back to school too, and sharing some tips and helping you and your kids have a really successful year. So thank you, Victoria, for hosting this webinar.
Thank you, Michelle, for providing all this great information. And I really agree with you about the part that parents need support, and we need to do our own preparation to get ready to go back to school, because it's just been so long. I think we're out of practice. We're just out of practice with this whole school routine. And many parents are getting ready to go back to work themselves, to go back to offices. So it's a lot of stuff all coming together. And we definitely need some help. I would like to, if I could, just throw in one additional tip for parents, especially if your child is going to be at a new school or with a team of professionals, teacher, maybe a speech therapist or a school psychologist who really don't know your child. There are some tools that we can use to help provide a written introduction about our child and what they like, what works well for them in terms of, helping them, in the classroom, what doesn't work, different approaches to take. And there's something called a one-page profile. And after this webinar, I'm going to email information out to everyone who attended. So we're going to send out the handout for this presentation. So you have all these tips. You don't have to worry about writing them down. And I'll also send out a blank one-page profile and an example. So parents, if you want to use that, take a few days and, maybe write out some things about your child, what they like, what they don't like, what their interests are, their hobbies, and so on. I think that's really helpful to get to have school professionals get to know your child.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. In fact, I was meeting with a parent this morning, and, this is a student I supported last year, but we just kind of went through, what is the student like, and are they still going to be kind of motivated by the same things that they were into last year? And it was good to just, kind of hear what they've done over the summer, and, that this child seemed to be very into a lot of the same things that they were in the past, but we know, summer can change a lot. So, hearing from the parent about what they really have done over the summer, and kind of what I'm going to expect when the student comes back to school. This student, has been really at home all summer. They didn't go to camp. They didn't go to, a daycare or anything like that. So the transition back to school might be a little bit more difficult. But it was good to hear that from the parent, so that we could really make sure that, we're really supporting the student as best as we can. So I completely agree that providing some of that information to the child's teacher might be helpful. I know another thing is that some schools are doing virtual back to school nights, like the night before school starts or sometime in the week before school starts. And I would really encourage parents to attend those, to meet the child's teacher virtually and hear about, what the expectations are going to be. So if you haven't heard from your school, reach out, look at their website and see what kind of preparation activities they might be doing. That would be really important too.
Yeah.
Yep. So thank you for hosting the webinar.
You're welcome. Someone typed in a question. What can I do if my child does not want to go back to school? That's a hard one.
It is a hard one. I mean, we have several of those, and I think it's a very personal question for each family. So I am working with a family right now their child says they do not want to go back to school. And he's very adamant that virtual learning has been really good for him. And he wants to stay in virtual learning. And the family has decided that that's not the best option for them or for him, and that he needs to go back to school full time. So, in that case, we're trying to do what we can to help him remember the fun things about school. And, for this particular child, like we've communicated to the school and to the teacher that he is, sharing that he doesn't want to come back to school, which may mean that there's, some more challenging behaviors at the start of the school year, but we want to have really good reward system in place. So, if you're a parent and your child doesn't want to go back to school, you may want to set up a reward system where, if they go to school, if they, get ready in the morning and get into the car and go to school and come home in the afternoon, that there's some reward for them. Maybe, you do a sticker chart and then something like that where they can earn, certain rewards over time just for simply going to school. And then at school, we would want to try to provide, some type of reward for appropriate behavior and some preferred activities as well. So, the student that I was speaking of, parents will do a great job of rewarding at home. They often do, this is a really a family that's very, very supportive. But at school, we want to make sure that we have, this student likes to earn computer time or iPad if that's available. And so we want to really make sure that if he engages in appropriate behavior at school, that he has access to some of those preferred activities, so that we can, make it a more fun, welcoming environment for him. So, if that's the case, I would really want to communicate with the principal at the school at this point, because principals are all starting to, return a little bit before teachers do. And so they can, maybe help. There may be, you may be able to talk to the school and set up a virtual meeting with the teacher to get to know the teacher and share some of that. And your student can share with the teacher if that's appropriate. Things like that might be able to help. So I would definitely reach out to the school for some of those, supports if they are able to provide them. And then another thought is every school has behavioral support, embedded into the school, either provided by a behavior analyst or a school psychologist. Principals have a lot of this information too. So don't hesitate to reach out. And I've already gotten forwarded several emails from students that we support, or from schools that we support, from parents who have already, shared some of those concerns. And so we're reviewing those. And and really getting ready to support those students when those parents have reached out and shared, my child doesn't want to come back to school, or I'm very concerned about them coming back to school because of those unique individual things that are related to those kids. And so we're already, responding and preparing to support them as best we can.
Good.
So
Great. Well, that's a really good tip, because we know it'll be the adjustment will be challenging for some students, and we don't want parents to think that they're completely alone. They can ask for some behavioral support for their child at school.
Yep. Yeah, one mom that I worked with last year, really reached out for some support, and I started communicating with her and checking in, and I checked in a couple of times even over summer, and she kind of indicated, just knowing that you're there to help, and knowing that there's someone at school who's looking out for my son and has his best interests, is like, that's all I needed. So I feel like I haven't done a whole lot for that family, but the mom really feels like, or at least she shares with me, that it really has been meaningful. And there are a lot of people like that on school campuses. So you just need to, find who that person is on your school campus who's really going to be there to help and support and be there.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us. You can always reach out to Family Focused Resource Center. We are staffed with parents just like you who have children that, have special education needs, and we're getting ready to get all our kids back to school too. So I put our website here in the chat. We have 4 offices in LA County, so please contact the office closest to you. And we hope to see you in September on our part 2. And again, thank you, Michelle, for the workshop, and thanks everyone for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.